manned by a physician, Scott Perlman, and a patient advocate, that would be me. We also have our VP of content tweeting. So it's a team effort. This is going to be all kinds of fun. Okay, so first off, we started thinking, what's the social media thing? We see it on Forbes, we see it on CNN. What are the benefits of social media for health? Well, actually, if your organization starts here, you're almost certainly destined to fail, right? This is a generalized question that will end up with a lot of argument and not a lot of clarification. I suggest you start here. What are the benefits of social media, tools, site, service? Pick one. We started with Twitter for the health of my user base and audience. Well, okay, that's great. Who is your user base and audience? If you can't define it, go back to square one. And also, engage across professional force fields. This is one of the amazing things that social media tools like Twitter allow us to do for health. Connect patients and providers at a direct equivalency level. So how does that site, tool, service help me connect patients and providers as a Health 2.0 content site? This is kind of where we started, this massive idea of how Twitter is useful for healthcare in general. Well, a lot of people, tweets, people who are using Twitter regularly, including both patients and providers, are using Twitter to talk about illness, injury, recovery, recommend doctors, etc. This is a good opening slide if you're trying to sell using Twitter to your hospital. Well, what does Twitter do? And what should we do with it? Well, of course, we should use Twitter to provide organized wisdom content. Now, we should also focus that down more. Let's pick a specific health issue that is ignored or underreported online in social media. And we picked mood disorders for several reasons, personal and professional. Nice to tweet you. Let's take a look at how we developed this tool with those very kind of general ideas about how we proceed. So, to tweet or not to tweet? Well, we wanted to tweet about depression. I'm not going to ask for people in the room to raise their hand and share whether or not they've suffered with depression. I'm just going to do this. Right? It was a very personal issue for me, for members of my family, and members in my professional community. This isn't something that I've shared professionally because there's a huge stigma attached to living with depression. Right? If you're a cancer survivor, you're celebrated. You wear a yellow bracelet, right? Where is my yellow bracelet for living with depression? Okay, so what questions then do we have? Again, organizationally. That's great, Jen. We'll help you live with this kind of condition. You're a good worker, right, guys? How many Twitter feeds do we need? There are subclinical diagnoses for depression, right? Depression is a generalized catch-all term for these three things. Depression, bipolar disorder, and MDD, major depressive disorder. Where do we start? Do we tweet for all three? Do we tweet for one? Do we kind of tweet for one with some touching on the other two? How does that distribution break down? And I have an interesting case study for how we actually figured out how to do that. What content do we use? Well, we already have a lot of great content on organized wisdom. How do we transition that into a Twitter format, just 140 characters? It's a bit of a challenge. How do we get followers? And who do we want to follow, right? We already had some followers on a general wellness-oriented feed for our company called @OrganizedWisdom. I had personal followers. Raise your hand if you're following @OrganizedWisdom. Okay, raise your hand if you're following @McCabe. Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. So we started this feed with that idea that we would try to draw in our followers from the health and medical community and also advocates that we approached individually and doctors that we approached individually. Great, but then who's going to keep this thing going organizationally, right? Whose job is it going to be to tweet about living with depression? And several of our other team members. How are we going to do this? What is the process? What are the metrics that we use to track performance? What type of stuff should we be tweeting? How should we skin it? Should it have a special design? Should it be funny? Should it be cute? Should it be our logo? And how do we make it interesting, authentic, valuable, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so the first thing, back to the first question. How do we use Twitter to connect with our audience? Who is our audience? This is from our co-founder, Unity Stokes, who unfortunately is not here today. But our audience is anyone searching for health information. Self-segmented by the search terms that you use when you go to organizedwisdom.com, which you can all try out. Our users tend to segment themselves based on the episodic condition-specific information for which they're searching at the time. But if they're searching, then they're our audience. You can go to quantcast.com for details on our current demographics. Okay, we do is provide content. And you may have heard the term Health 2.0 bandied about. Anybody here who's heard of Health 2.0? Okay. Oh, some laughs. All right, not going to touch that one. How do we define Health 2.0? What is it? The most ridiculously simple definition that we could come up with was content and community online, surrounding health information with social networking. That means forming a partnership conversation between patient and provider, or patient and patient, or provider and provider, or healthcare entrepreneur and healthcare entrepreneur, or tech consultant and healthcare entrepreneur. Twitter lets us do all of that. Yeah, it's a community thing. So then what kind of content? Again, where is the biggest need that we saw on Twitter? We saw diabetes tweets, right? We saw cancer tweets, right? We saw heart disease tweets. We saw women's health tweets. We saw Spanish doctor tweets. We didn't see any mood disorder tweets, and especially